Hi guys, welcome to another podcast. This is my pre-game analysis of the South Africa versus New Zealand game. Now, contrary to what a lot of you believe, I don't have a lot of time on my hands to make these sort of videos, so I try and make them when I do get a bit of free time. That's why I didn't do a sort of pre-game analysis for the Australia game. I was out of the country at that time. But yeah, let's just get straight into it. So let's take a look at the South African matchday squad. You can see in terms of the back three, it's pretty much unchanged except for Jesse Kriel moving on to the wing in place of Mapimpi, who's injured. I'm quite concerned about Jesse Kriel being on the wing. I would have much rather have seen Cheslin Kolbe there, give him a go. Kriel just hasn't impressed me since the day he put on a Springbok jersey. I just don't rate the guy, and that's just a personal opinion. So replacing Kriel in the midfield is Lucanio Am, and very inexperienced, and him and Lindy are going to have a tough go against the New Zealand counterparts, I'm afraid. And then Pollard comes in for Janchis. I think it's quite important that Pollard has his kicking boots on for that day. But in terms of defence, he's always been pretty solid. So it's going to take a hell of a lot to stop that New Zealand halfback combination. So I think it is the right choice going with Andre Pollard. And then the loose forwards, we unchanged. We've got big Peter Steph the Toy playing the flank. Then the tight five's pretty much unchanged except for Malcolm Boks coming in for Bongi Mbonani. And then the bench, we got Ross Cronje, who's replaced Ambrose Papier on the bench. Now, I don't rate Ross Cronje as a scrum half in the least. I think his distribution's slow. I don't think his reading of the game's the best. And with Cheslin Kolbe and Ambrose Papier, I don't think we have much to lose by putting these guys on. But besides that, look, pretty solid team. For what's available. And, a beast of a tight five. So I'm hoping they'll give the All Blacks some grief. And then we move on to the New Zealand starting squad. You can see Jordie Barrett's come in at fullback. Amazing talent he is. Burden Barrett's brother. So you can see in bold that I've basically put in Hurricanes players in bold, basically because they're playing at home. Now, it's quite dangerous having someone like Burden Barrett who's playing at home, a stadium that he knows back to front, and being the best fly half in the world right now, or the best player in the world right now. So, look, it's an extremely strong New Zealand team. I think the only player they're really going to miss is Retallick at lock, but at the same time, Scott Barrett's, no slouch. Overall, as always, very, very strong New Zealand team. Now, the back three is a bit young, but Ben Smith's there to guide them along, I think, 32 years old and 70 caps. But, Ione and Barrett are probably the best players in the world for their age and their position. So, it's a very, very, very good and competent New Zealand team. So just let's take a look at the combinations quickly. So if we take a look at the back three, pretty much neck in neck, but the New Zealand back three is a bit bigger. In terms of the centres, you can see it's a lot more caps for the New Zealand centres. They've got a hell of a lot more experience. But in terms of size and age, pretty much equal. And if we take a look at the halfback combinations, I mean, that's going to be a key area in this battle. But, I mean, you look at that New Zealand halfback combination, I mean, 71 caps average, between them. So basically triple of what the South African halfback combination is. Now, de Klerk and Pollard they're not slouches, but at the same time, Barrett and Smith are probably the best in the world in their positions. If we take a look at the loose forwards, pretty much exactly the same in terms of age and weight, but look at the caps again. I mean, double the caps. There's just a lot of experience there for the New Zealanders. And in the tight five, again, very, very much the same in age and weight, but it's the caps guys. I mean, there's a lot of experience. These guys have played together a lot. They know each other back to front, and that is where I think they got the advantage, not just only based on their talent, which is in abundance, but they've got a lot of experience. But if we take a look at the bench, South Africa's got a bit more experience on the bench. Now, those numbers are obviously, pumped up by beasts with over 100 caps. But at the same time, why I look at the bench is that, when things get difficult and you need to bring some experienced heads on, it gets quite important late in the game. So, I don't put the average weight in. I mean, that's a combination between backs and forwards, so I don't really bother with that. So, let's take a look at the test at the Westpac. I mean, we haven't won there. Every single time New Zealand's won, and the average score is 32-13. If we take a look at the combined the caps of the starting 15 for the South Africans, you can see we generally perform a lot better with experienced teams than inexperienced teams. And the vast majority of the refs have been from the Northern Hemisphere. So basically, in terms of the average, like I said, a 32-13 score, average of 488 combined caps, and normally a Northern Hemisphere ref. So for this, what we've got is this game, we basically got 466 combined caps and a Northern referee. So what are the keys to success for the Springboks? Well, firstly, they need to dominate up front. That's going to be the most important thing for the Springboks to do in this game. We need to dominate up front, and we need to keep the game tight. I really want us to avoid adventurous play. We can't stuff around with the New Zealanders. If we start throwing wild passes and we start trying to experiment too much, this is going to be an absolute hiding. So keep it tight. Don't be kicking away possession all the time. Now, I've got a feeling we're going to see a hell of a lot of box kicking from Faf. This just seems to be, the norm for Springbok coaches. But when you're kicking away to a back three, as potent as the back three is in New Zealand, they run back at you, and they run back at you hard, and they open up gaps. So, look, at the same time, it's a relatively inexperienced young three, so it might not be bad to test them at the beginning, but at the same time, once they've broken through those lines a couple of times, if they do, then I'll definitely avoid it. Another important factor is going to be Handré Pollard's boot. His kicking has been completely amiss the last couple of games. So we really need him to, turn possession into points. Now, there's nothing worse for a forward, and I was a forward when I was younger. There's nothing worse for a forward. When you do all the hard work up front, you're dominating up front, win a couple of penalties, and your bloody fly-off can't get the 3 points up. I mean, it's quite a deflating experience. And that plays into the psychology of the whole thing. So Handré Pollard needs a good day with a boot. And obviously the last thing is we need to nullify that halfback threat. Faf needs to stay on Aaron Smith like nobody's business. And Handré Pollard needs to do the same with Barrett. It's going to be a hell of a tough game. I mean, those guys are two of the best in the world in their position, if not the best in the world in their position. So that's going to be a key. You've got to stop them from dictating the game, which is extremely difficult, but make some sort of plan. So what's my prediction? Okay, so look, I've looked at the weather conditions. I think the game kicks off at about 5:30 p.m. New Zealand time, if I'm not mistaken. And it looks like the precipitation is going to be low, which means that the handling is not going to be much of an issue as it was last week. Last week was a disaster with our handling. It was rainy. It was raining. The ball was wet, so it was difficult. I mean, Willie Leroux can't play in those type of conditions. He struggles in those type of conditions. And I think, as every Springbok team does, I think they're going to play with heart and guts. Now, what I sort of think will happen is very early on, we're going to see New Zealand scoring. That just seems to be a trend with us. That sort of back three combination we have, they seem to have some sort of communication issue at the beginning of the game, which allows opposition to come in and score some soft tries right at the start. So, I expect that New Zealand back three to break through very early on and score a try. But I think after that, the game will tighten up a bit. And I think the Springbok forwards are going to execute the rolling ball very effectively. I mean, it's a very, very strong tight five. And I think we'll do very well in the scrums, which will put a lot of pressure on New Zealand. But like I said, I think what we really need to do is convert those opportunities into points. I think we might get 1 or 2 tries, but I think most of the points in this game will come from penalties from us. And I think, like always, I think what will happen is that the score will look pretty respectable, but the All Blacks will just have too much class, and then there will just be 2 to 3 tries at the end that'll make the game look more comfortable than it was. So I think South Africa are going to take the game to New Zealand. I think we will surprise New Zealand with how much heart and courage we play with and all the rest of it. But we just don't have the skill level. And I'm not trying to be negative. A lot of guys are sending me messages saying, "Why are you being so negative? Don't you have anything good to say?" Well, I just call it like I see it, guys. I mean, this is not a great Springbok team by any stretch of the imagination, and it's a fantastic New Zealand team. And we're playing in a stadium that we've never won in before. So it's a tough ask. But I think New Zealand will take it by 20 to 25 points. If I had to predict a score, I think something like 42-22. So in terms of that, you're probably looking at like maybe the score being 28-22 with 10 minutes to go, and then New Zealand score a couple of tries, and the game looks like a lot more of a thrashing than it was. That's what I expect to happen. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let's just leave down what you expect your score to be in the comments below. What do you think the score is going to be? What do you think is going to happen with the game? Obviously, always interested to sort of read what you guys have to say. And again, not trying to be negative. I'm just being a realist and calling it like I see it. Anyway, have a great one, guys, and let's hope the Springboks surprise us.